Welcome into Tailgate Thursday for week number 10 of the 2024 college football season. My name is David Morrison from the Vol Society, here to preview the upcoming college football games this weekend, featuring our Vols, the SEC, and games across the nation. And we begin with our beloved Tennessee Volunteers. Once again, home at Neyland Stadium. It's dark mode weekend as the 7th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers welcomes in the 3-5 Kentucky Wildcats for a 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on the SEC Network. Tennessee coming off a bye week, well rested, hopefully, and getting ready to take on another SEC rival in Kentucky. Meanwhile, for the offense of the Kentucky Wildcats, beg your pardon, it's just not there. Kentucky coming off a loss to Auburn. They have really fallen as far as the team goes. Remember, back in September, they took Georgia to the wire, and they upset Ole Miss on the road. Well, that now feels like a lifetime ago. And, Kentucky coming into a hostile environment. Offense is not clicking. Their quarterbacks have had issues, and now you're taking on a Tennessee defensive front that just wreaks havoc, and you have a secondary that's drastically improved with the likes of Will Brooks and Jermon McCoy. We'll see what happens this Saturday night as Kentucky takes on Tennessee from Knoxville. Let's go to the SEC. Noon on ESPN, 19th-ranked Ole Miss, 6-2 on the year, taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks at 5-3. Arkansas blew out the other Mississippi school, Mississippi State, on the road last week, and now trying to at least get bowl eligible at least at this point. Still a great year for Sam Pittman and the Hogs. For Ole Miss, 6-2. Who knows where their playoff chances are at this point. Right now, you're just trying to hope that you can get in. If you went out and go 10-2, try to get into the playoffs if you're Ole Miss. But, we'll see what happens. These two teams always put on an entertaining game year in and year out, and expect to see another one this Saturday in Fayetteville. 12:45 SEC Network. The 5-3 Vanderbilt Commodores coming off a disappointing loss to the Texas Longhorns. They took them to the wire. And now they take on a team that won last week, the Auburn Tigers, who comes in at 3-5 on the year. Remember, last year Auburn won at Vanderbilt, but if you follow this Vanderbilt team this year, Diego Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, was on New Mexico State last year. You had Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator, Jerry Hill, who was the head coach at the time. That New Mexico State team went to the Plains of Auburn in late November and defeated the Auburn Tigers, just ran them out of their own stadium for, I think it was homecoming or senior day. Just an eye-opening win for the Aggies, and now that team is on Vanderbilt, and we're seeing what they're doing this year in Nashville. Could history repeat itself, or can Auburn get back on the winning ways and at least try to be bowl eligible by the end of the season? We shall find out this Saturday. 3:30 ABC, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Florida taking on number 2 Georgia from Jacksonville, and this will be the last time, at least for the next 2 years, that the city of Jacksonville will not host the world's largest outdoor cocktail party due to renovations at the Jag Stadium. But it will be Florida taking on Georgia this Saturday at 3:30 on ABC. Florida still has a winning record going into November. We wasn't expecting that. But, here they are. And, Georgia obviously trying to get into Atlanta for the SEC championship game. We shall see what happens this Saturday afternoon. All right, prime time, ABC 7:30. A lot of people's picking this as an upset alert. 10th-ranked Texas A&M coming off a fresh win against LSU, heading to Columbia to take on South Carolina. South Carolina has that stingy defense. We shall see what happens. Williams-Brice Stadium, a tough place to play, especially at night. Expect to be an entertaining game as the Aggies head to South Carolina to take on those Gamecocks. Who knows? We could see an upset in this one. We shall see. All right, let's go across the nation really quick. Big time game in the Big Ten. We head to Happy Valley. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 3, Penn State. Big noon Saturday on Fox. Ohio State trying to climb back into that Big Ten title picture. Their one loss was to the Oregon Ducks, who is a conference member. You have some undefeated teams right now in the Big Ten with Indiana still unbeaten. Penn State's one of them, as you see in the graphic. And Oregon also. We'll preview the Ducks in a minute. But big game for Ohio State to at least get back into Big Ten contention. Obviously I still think they're a playoff team. Meanwhile, for Penn State, 7-0 on the year. I guess you could say probably the quietest. Well, actually, there's a couple teams that's quietly undefeated at this point. I would say Indiana's one of them, and another team we'll talk about in a moment. But, Penn State, number 3 in the country, just taking care of business and winning games. And now taking on the old rival in Ohio State coming up this Saturday for an afternoon game. And we'll see what happens in this one. Noon on ABC, we go to the ACC Hard Rock Stadium in Miami or Coral Gables, wherever it's at. It's the Miami Hurricanes, still undefeated, 8-0 on the year, number 5, taking on the 6-2 Duke Blue Devils, who's put up, for Manny Diaz in his first season, doing a really great job coaching this Duke team. Matter of fact, Manny Diaz returning back. He was a former head coach at Miami before Mario Cristobal took over. Should be a fun matchup. You got Malik Murphy, the quarterback for Duke. Meanwhile, for Miami, you have Cam Ward. Miami's a 20-point favorite in this game. I don't know if they can blow this team out by 20, in my opinion. I think it can be a close game. I'm not sure if it'll be an upset, but it should be a fun one. And like I said, Miami tried to get into the ACC championship game. All right, 12 on FS1. An interesting game in the Big Ten. Minnesota on a 3-game winning streak, heading to Champaign to take on the number 24 Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois coming off they just got blew out by Oregon last Saturday in Eugene. After that kind of an emotional win against Michigan a couple of weeks ago. What will Brett Bielema and this Illini team do? Like I said, PJ Fleck has got these Gophers playing well, 3-game winning streak. Should be a fun little game in Champaign, Minnesota, and Illinois, typical Big Ten game. 3:30 on CBS. Speaking of the Rose Bowl Conference, the number 1 Oregon Ducks taking on the Michigan Wolverines from the Big House. 3:30 CBS, as I mentioned. Oregon, fresh off the win, still undefeated, defeated Illinois, going to Michigan. These two teams met in the Big House, over 20 years ago, and Oregon ended up winning that game on controversial fashion. Some bad officiating, and that game ended in controversy. I do remember that from a long time ago. I don't expect to see that, but, some people putting this as an upset alert. I'm not ready to say that's going to happen. I still think Dan Lanning, Dylan Gabriel, and the Ducks will probably go into the Big House and pull a win out, but crazier things have happened in college football, especially this season. All right, a couple of ACC primetime games. Louisville taking on number 11, Clemson. Clemson's still undefeated in ACC play. Their one loss so far is to Georgia back in week 1 in Atlanta. Meanwhile, for Louisville, trying to play spoiler at this point. Still not a bad year for the Cards, but probably could have been better. Like I said, you have that kind of that log jam at the top of the ACC standings between Clemson and Miami and another team we're going to mention in just a minute here. But, Clemson's still hanging on at 6-1. Clemson and Miami, I don't think they meet in the regular season. Definitely they would meet in Charlotte for the ACC championship game if it comes down to that point. But, got to get by Louisville in this one for Dabo and company. And, for Louisville, they have a tendency to upset teams from time to time. We shall see. All right, final game. Yes, this is an ACC game. Always got to remember with these conference realignments. 18th ranked and undefeated Pitt Panthers heading to Dallas to take on the 21st ranked SMU Mustangs. 8 o'clock on the ACC network. Pittsburgh along with Clemson and Miami atop of the ACC standing, still undefeated. What's going to happen in this one? They got to go on the road to SMU, and SMU and Gerald J. Ford Stadium. I mean, not a big stadium per se, but definitely going to be a tough place to play. Playing in an unusual stadium that you normally don't play all the time. Should be a lot of fun. Like I said, SMU has done a great job with Kevin Jennings at quarterback. We'll see what happens in this one. SMU in their first year in the ACC have done a fantastic job with at this point, top 25 ranking, 7-1. There was a lot of expectations in the preseason about them having a good year, and they're holding up their end of the bargain. So we'll see what happens late on the ACC network. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Tailgate Thursday. Enjoy the college football, everybody, and we'll talk to y'all next week for week number 11 of Tailgate Thursday. Until next time, this is David Morrison